Alex Answer here. It is October 25th, 2016. This is going to be the latest in our conversation on the Archons. Question came up in the conversation, the comment section, regarding narcissists, and I wanted to address narcissists, extreme versions of that, especially in the media, and how that relates to the Archons. From there, I'm going to talk a little bit about relationships in this current society. And so when you have people that are programmed to use each other, whether it be a man or whether it be a woman, they are taking on that archonic use someone's energy, and they can be used as a host. And so those are the main two areas of conversation that I'm going to be discussing. So when we look at people like Alex Jones, when we look at others in the mainstream media, even though they're doing wrong, there's a certain sense of satisfaction that some of them are getting from leading so many astray. Some people become drunk with the attention, all that energy focused on them, and they take advantage of it instead of use it in a more peaceful way. And when you convince certain people, and the Archons are very famous for implanting thoughts, hence the phrase, "Are your thoughts your own?" So if someone's under a psychosis, like certain individuals that we know, and they believe the whole world revolves around their teachings and their information, when people that don't agree with them are the enemy, when they are literally becoming ecstatic over the energy they're receiving, the popularity, the wealth, the attention, their ability actually to drive the narrative. And so instead of the sword being used for good, a sword of truth, light, of justice, cutting through the archonic dark grid, instead, if they're not spiritually grounded, they can end up being a tool of this. Now, there's danger in being involved in the alternative media, or anything for that matter, for the wrong reasons. But when we talk about media, we're talking about people that reach other people. And so there are certain ways people police what areas they discuss, who they interview, what opinions they allow on their channel or their website, if they're invested in a particular image of who they are. Hence not being outside the box, but being very inside the box. And so when we look at inside the box thinking within conspiracy research today, the independent media, alternative media, you could see some clear-cut examples of people that are almost preaching a religion or ideology or theology that in many cases has holes in it bigger than the holes left in the Pentagon on the day of 9/11. You know, something you can fly a plane through, like enormous, outrageous holes. I mentioned John Lash and the reasons why I believe he's not putting out a true message. I think his earlier work was a lot more spot on and reached a lot of people. When I heard the Red Ice Creations interview, you know, and they're talking about white genocide, they're now taking this understanding of archons and they're getting racial with it. Those that are born with a more likelihood to be archonically controlled, the Semites, and those with a less likely ability to be controlled by the archons, white people. Reason given, because they eat bacon. And so what you're looking at there is one of the most foremost considered experts on the archons, who's absorbed a lot of energy and attention himself on the topic, who's been looked to towards so many, including the solutions. Okay, knowing about it's one thing. How do we break free from the matrix instead of just simply becoming the abyss because we're unspiritually grounded and then becoming the abyss? Some of the exact examples that I've previously mentioned, you know, where people become so absorbent with a certain image of who they are and their truth, and perhaps other things that allow their guard to go down. Talk about that spiritual protection, the aura around our body, magnetic fields around the human body by Manly P. Hall is a great lecture on YouTube. You'll also see that archonic energy come in, or that just knee-jerk reaction to demonize those that have spent their whole life trying to illuminate, to truly illuminate that which was previously shrouded in darkness. Relationships. Well, this is an easy one for me. Anytime a man or a woman and I'll speak from a man's perspective from my experiences, and how I made some poor decisions and invested a lot of emotional energy in certain people, looking outside of myself for love in all the wrong places, trying to heal childhood traumas with my mother through certain women. And because it's almost those pictures inside of me that are dependent, that are looking outside of myself, it's almost as if I walked into a sabotage situation or a heartbreak situation, or situations where there was some feelings for me from the girl for a while. And then there was almost some sort of a switch that was turned. And I've mentioned before in previous videos, certain people that I was dating or wanted to date, somehow or another, for some reason, had some strange dreams. And I call that a dream invasion. And put it this way, another family member also had such dream invasions. I believe that when you're actually on the path of exposing things, you're not bulletproof. You can be protected to a certain degree. You can protect your own self. You can protect your own mind. But if you're engaged in a certain lifestyle of exposing what the Archons are doing, you can't control or protect the mind or consciousness of those around you or those that you're speaking to. That's impossible. All you can do is keep moving forward. You know, like Rocky with that quote's not, how hard you can hit or how hard you can get hit, and keep moving forward. We could throw out some major hits, and then there's the energy backlash. Is there going to be something in our guard that's going to allow ourselves to be thrown off track when you're infatuated with a certain person, and it's under the guise of love? There's Eve Lorgan's The Love Bite, by the way, which you can download for free online, a free PDF. And she's talked about this alien, I call Archon, interference in human relationships. I can see in my own life how much energy of my own was sapped. Not from one person, but multiple. And without getting specific, I can see certain patterns. What I can also see is when I was most in desire, when certain people were in my life during a time in which I was reaching, for example, you could say more people than I am today, when I was still doing cable access in Portland. And by the way, to free myself of my own ego, to free myself of my own attachments, to even wanting to reach a certain amount of people or playing a role, there were other reasons why I walked away from my TV show when I was reaching so many. I could have stayed in Portland both times, and I decided better of it. So my off-the-grid lifestyle has to do with a lot of different things. You know, there's dozens of physical world events we can discuss that may have encouraged some people to go off-grid from the direction society's going in. Higher crime rates in certain areas, quality of life decreasing in certain urban areas, standard of living costs, concerns about war, concerns about the grid, other things. And then I would say it's also a certain percentage, although not documented by study, of those that, not that they're all on the path of Buddha, but the path of non-materialism, the path of living with less, the path of being alongside nature, and the path of not, for one thing, being consumed with lust for others. We look at urban environments. I've described Portland very well in other videos. One of the most, well, it's like number 3 in child sex trafficking per capita. I don't know if it's number 3 or number 2, but it's up there with Vegas regarding strip clubs. Then you have the escorts, and then you have the drug scene, and then you have the history of the Shanghai. And you have a lot of Dante's Inferno related topics and themes regarding Portland's past, present, and future. And I contemplate often that I came from the womb out of that region, and thank God I'm here today. But in a world like that, in a city like that, and I'll share something I've never shared before, I felt more sexual desire there than here. That type of, almost as if your body's responding something to something around you. And it's like it needs some healing because of, as above, so below, as below, so above. with regards to how we're impacted by the environment. And you can think about Bruce Lipton, and he talks about positive thinking and epigenetics and cells being impacted more by their environment than a nucleus. He's giving more of like a spiritual and scientific view of it. But you can easily look at what he and Ike, for example, has shared, especially with his, regardless of the controversy surrounding Ike, but to cite a specific book, Love is the Only Truth. And regardless of what you even think about that statement, his chapter on the holographic reality and us being impacted by the Matrix and being able to impact the Matrix, and you look at Bruce Lipton and all of this, and even the hidden messages in water, and we're made of water. And so we can be impacted in a positive or negative way based on frequencies, sounds, thoughts, all types of things going on around us. We're a mass biological compass of trillions of cells. So that which is happening at the microcosmic level is obviously happening at the macrocosmic level. And so in urban environments, connecting to certain areas where there's been environmental degradation, where it's a wounded goddess spirit, like Portland, wounded goddess, the land's been broken, and humanity's done some damage to the river and elsewhere. It's almost like a longing, like, oh, I need to connect. I need this experience so I can feel whole and grounded. And that's where I source part of it. You know, it could also be the unhealed wounds and trauma from our childhood that we're trying to heal. There's nothing wrong with romance and love. And that's, in fact, a very beautiful thing and powerful thing, and why it's under attack. What I'm specifying is how the Archons can use certain people to trap us in these webs of send your attention here. And when we're looking at love in all the wrong places, it's possible we can be targeted and led into certain traps, whether you're on a certain path or not. But it's not really about someone like me outputting information to the world. It could be as simple as trying to hold you back from your own evolution. You may have a timetable where you're supposed to be at a certain point at a certain time in the cycle to get ready for the next cycle. So, you know, it's like that Chinese parable, good luck, bad luck. And I would Google that if you have. Sometimes we don't know why certain things happen. Sometimes it may seem to be a negative thing, but it's in fact a positive thing. Sometimes it goes a series of things, and our perspective on whether it's positive or negative changes over time. So that's something to be really aware of. For example, it was not a positive thing, in my eyes, to be living in a homemade teardrop camper in Portland my last year there during the housing crisis. But what it did is set me free. One door closed and another door opened. And history has shown that that has been the case. And if there are other things that I may encounter that seem to be negative or even apocalyptic, it could always be because we're being removed from one situation to being put somewhere else that's safer or better, or the place where we need to be. So going back to Portland, and I want you to picture this. Take a deep breath. And consider just gradually approaching the state of consciousness to where you snap into that place of focus and center and grounding. And to be in that space when you're looking into the abyss. It's like putting on the ring and Sauron getting the surveillance data update. Or from They Live, I've got one that can see. So you have, for example, a city like Portland or a city like Vegas, and you have all this stimuli regarding the sexualization of the female. And the female is playing along with that game. Not all, but just enough that are enforcing that program and the value system and the gender warfare, which reinforces the preference. In some cases, the physical hot body over here and the aging male or the aging woman who's not as young, whose petals on her flower are not as fresh. There are aspects of our physical world that are unnaturally obsessed with physical beauty. over the beauty of what is inside. And there are so many people that have also confused physical pleasure with spiritual ecstasy. And we could see this in the counterfeit spiritual movements that are misusing the law of attraction only for selfish means, which has consequences. So I've heard. But it makes sense. Makes a lot of sense that the misuse of magical abilities, or psychic abilities, or other abilities, or physical abilities, or the beauty and the beauties of intelligence, being able to access certain bits of information. The misuse of those talents, gifts, are the very things that can bind us to this matrix. And so, I noticed in Portland, an old, and I don't want to dig up too much dirt. It's like advertising what you're not selling. And a lot of the energy manipulation regarding playing men. And as a man, and as someone who's learned about these things from my own experience, I don't speak to demonize any group, but share what I saw, to share what I experienced, and to share my truth. I know that I incarnated into a particular time and age, where during my childhood and early on, I saw the mainstream messages that men are pigs. The sex-obsessed male, the woman in retreat, patriarchy. But then I also saw something else. Saw a city where if you weren't the type that was in, on a physical level of the physical current demands and desires of the consensus reality of, say, the average Portland restaurant or Portland place of employment, you could see a mass displacement with an over-preference for certain types of humans over others. And how some people have been trapped into confusing, true femininity. Confused for, they call this thing feminism, then there's neo-feminism. And, there's so much archonic anger and energy wrapped up in even exposing feminism and all that. You could see it like the mainstream MGTOW stuff. You want to stay clear of this anger. Go back to that breath and ground yourself as we look into these things and how they've used people. And we really should look at these people, men, women, whatever the case might be. There are women watching this that have dealt with the archonic influence over men in their lives. So instead of blaming them, we try to understand why. And we look to the patterns throughout society. And then it's not just about them. And it certainly isn't all one sex. It's like there's a battle within every one of us. Maurice Cotterell calls the physical plane purgatory, hell, or hell. Hell being another ancient word from, I don't know if it's from the Gnostic text or something else. He also talks about the positive deeds that we do, adding to our soul's voltage. And the negative things and harm that we do, as Manly P. Hall talks about, that can weaken our magnetic field, weakens our soul voltage. And that a certain soul voltage is necessary to go beyond this plane of reality. That is the reason why I believe many monks have gone off grid, if you will, and practiced a life of celibacy, or not going out in the town drinking. There's also that comedy Kentucky Fried Movie of 1977 where it shows the Shaolin monks going out and having a good old time. But I went out and I experienced those things and looking for love in all the wrong places. And in this, reverse discrimination, you can also, we've been used by men. Now it's our time to be completely misleading to get what we want. Normally we as men don't think about certain women as being so sex-starved that they can't settle down with one partner. But the generation that I grew up as an adult in the period that I started dating, I wasn't living in a period where values like monogamy and positive relationships were the norm. You could say that there are certain strings attached for some of those people that are in some of the positive relationships, and there are many that are enjoying that. Again, I would say that things are much more challenging, however, when you put yourself on the radar, and you're engaged in certain lifestyles. And I mean positive with regards to discussing these things. You can have people come in that are attracted because of some of the things that you're talking about, and there could be a deeper reason why. And this could be male or female. So going beyond relationships, I mean, there could be people that are micro-narcissists in your own life that want to absorb your attention. And they may be the closest people to you. And they may be spouting out like the script from the Matrix. It's like Agent Smith is almost tapped in their consciousness, and they're telling you that everything you believe is wrong, and everything that you're doing is wrong, and that you should follow their example, which is no example. It's to pretty much do nothing at all, and just be a critic of those that are trying to do something. I've noticed this. So for me, living off-grid means a lot of things. After years of socializing with a lot of people, after years of, I believe I put out some intentions for an intentional community years ago in Costilla. It wasn't the time. Now, I'm looking at all this stuff that I probably should return to discussing. And I found that when I discuss these things in urban environments, or situations where, say, I'm working somewhere, or I'm around other people, strange things will happen. Strange things will happen. I talked about the increase in archonic interference that I was noticing in people around me. One of them was going out to bars during that period where, I was in another state of consciousness of outreach. I'm going to have a few beers at the local pub and talk about the New World Order. I'm going to talk about what's really going on. I'm going to talk about how Obama, at that time, 08, 09, wasn't really the Messiah. And, wow, I made a lot of people upset for bringing up certain items around a few beers. And here I am telling the waitress, back in the days of the Revolutionary War, they would talk about things with the beer at the pub. And now, they got violent video games on TV. Got some girl bashing in some other girl's head. You have another friggin' football game. Good on y'all. You have 6 screens of nothingness all around us. And our country is literally burning spiritually and on the urge of physically. And all I'm trying to do is talk reality. So I know when the waters went from warm to extremes of boiling and freezing. We don't want that kind of talk. We don't want that kind of thought in here. That message was received loud and clear. So there's reasons why this path that I'm on now, all roads have led to this. And by the way, I'm just getting back in the swing of things. I don't have a lot of physical power. My batteries in my RV are fried, basically. And so I'm going to be doing a battery upgrade in the next few days. An unexpected expense, but worthy to invest energy in energy so I can share this energy with all of you as I get ready for my first off-grid winter without having to be moving from place to place. In my tiny home shed, living off the very basics, stepping back from the materialistic world, and focusing on my soul's path. If you'd like to contribute to the very things that I do, there's a PayPal link at alexansary.tv. For now, we'll pause and we'll come back in our continuous conversation on the Archons. I appreciate your comments, and I intend to respond to some of your comments with additional videos on this topic. Stay tuned.